Barklin closed the book in front of him, keeping his finger in place to mark the page he was on, and turned to the large stack of books he was leaning on. With his free paw he dragged a claw down the spines of the books until his finger came to rest on a smaller green cloth-bound book. With one fluid movement he pulled the book from the stack, the books that had been resting on it, falling quietly into place with a soft thud. Barklin handed the book to Samuel. "This one should tell us about the area and have maps similar to the ones I'm currently carrying. It's from the same publisher, though a bit older. The maps should still hopefully be up to date," said Barklin. Samuel reached for the book and placed it on top of Barklin's stack. "That's great work, Barky. I knew you'd have taken care of it already. Would you mind taking a quick look over it while Rose and I are away at the post office?" asked Samuel. Barklin stared up at Samuel. "Sure thing. Would you mind adding a note into my parents, so they know I'm okay and that we found the most wonderful library in Tenn's area?" said Barklin. Samuel laughed good-naturedly at his friend. "Of course that's what he finds amazing about this place," thought Samuel to himself. "Of course I can do that, Barky. Well, I'm going to head out now. Enjoy your books, and if you get bored, Averly is down in the sitting room studying her spell," said Samuel. "She got her trinket already?" asked Barklin curiously. "Yes. You've been in here a couple hours already. We thought it best to leave you until we were ready to go out, and since this place is so large, we figured you would find at least a few things to keep you interested," said Samuel, looking around the large wooden bookcases. Barklin smiled. "That was very kind of you two," said Barklin. "What did you do while Averly was finding her trinket?" Samuel blanched and blushed furiously, turning away from Barklin and then back towards him. "I hung out with Rose. We spent the time chatting and resting. You're going to enjoy the beds we have here. They're softer than anything I could think of to compare them to," said Samuel. Barklin smiled again and got up from his seated position. He stretched his neck, still holding the large book with one paw. Barklin twisted around, and audible cracks could be heard from his spine popping against itself. "Speaking of that, I think I'll take a few of these and go and lay down. Much more comfortable than sitting here. I guess I just lost myself to what I was reading for a bit," said Barklin. "That sounds good. We'll see you later, once we've come back," said Samuel. "Righto," said Barklin, grabbing the first 5 books on the larger stack with one paw and balancing them between his already encumbered paw. Barklin headed out into the hallway and could be heard walking towards the room where his bed waited. Samuel followed his exit and made his way down the stairs to the landing on the first floor and found Rose waiting for him there. The blush in her cheeks had died down but not fully receded. Rose smiled at him as he came down the stairs. "There you are. Are you ready to go?" Rose asked. "Yes, sure am. Barklin is fine. He had a stack of books next to him this high," said Samuel, holding his paws out to show how tall the stack had been. "Of course he did," said Rose. "Do you remember what he was like when he was smaller? The piles of books he would have all over his room, stacked against each wall, with the only pathway around the bedroom leading to the door and the bed at the other end. You were nice enough to build bookshelves for him for his birthday one year." Samuel smiled. "Yes, they were the first thing Dad let me build by myself. They weren't the best things I've ever made, but the way his eyes lit up when I brought him to the foundry to see them was great. It was raining, and we had to wrap them in oilcloth to get them over to the tavern as soon as possible," said Samuel. "You're right, I remember. He was so excited. He spent his days organizing his books to put them away properly. It was very kind of you to make this for him," said Rose, smiling at Samuel. "I had to. Couldn't handle going over to his room to play because I was always worried I would jostle something, or worse yet, knock over one of those stacks and cause the other stacks to fall over like dominoes all the way around the room. It was in all our best interests to make sure he had a safe place to store his books," said Samuel, laughing. "Shall we get going then?" asked Rose. "Sure. Have you got the map so we know where we're going?" asked Samuel. Rose reached into her pants pocket and pulled out the folded map. Rose opened it before the both of them and with one finger pointed toward they needed to head towards. "That's the tram station we need to get to, so we can take it to the stop near the clock tower, and from there we walk over here and up the street to the post office. The tram only runs for a few more hours, so we should head over there quickly," said Rose. Samuel watched as she traced the line of progress up the map and nodded. "Yes, let's get going so we have plenty of time to get back," said Samuel. Rose folded up the map and put it back into her pocket, and the two of them made their way out into the door and down the steps out into the street beyond. They stepped out onto the street and turned right and began heading down the sidewalk. They stopped at the cross-section of the next street and, looking both ways for any traffic, made their way across and on down the sidewalk. Various animals moved by them at differing speeds. A young toad couple passed by the two of them, holding hands. The young female toad was wearing a light blue dress with lace frocking, and the male toad was wearing a pinstripe suit. Rose thought they weren't going to make room for the two of them as they passed by the couple, but they broke hands at the last moment only to rejoin their grasp the very second their hands had passed over the two travelers. Rose sighed grumpily and looked at Samuel. "You'd think they would make room for other animals," said Rose. "Oh, well, you'd have to assume they're in love with how dearly they clung to one another," said Samuel, smiling. I suppose so, said Rose grumpily. She didn't like it when larger animals ignored the personal space of smaller animals as though they weren't there, and their casual embrace around her made her uncomfortable. You think we'll ever be like that? Asked Samuel. Rose looked at him and smiled a devilish smirk. I hope not, Rose said. I would think we would have better manners to other animals around us. Samuel broke out into a toothy grin. It was lovely laying with you on the bed, said Samuel. Rose blushed furiously and bit her lower lip. Yes, it was lovely, said Rose. Rose reached out and grabbed Samuel's paw in her own. Samuel squeezed her paw reflexively. They walked like that until they reached the tram station. As they came to the last building that faced the tram stop, Chibri spoke up, her voice muffled by the closed lantern swinging at Samuel's side. Do you think I could come out for a while? Asked Chibri, cracking the door to the lantern ajar and peeking out onto the street before her. Samuel placed his paw on the front of the lantern, closing it sharply. He stopped and leaned to the lantern at his waist. Sorry. We can't have you appearing in the middle of town and worrying anybody. We don't want to cause a scene. Once we get back to the Amberstones, we'll be able to let you out to stretch and get some fresh air, apologized Samuel. Chibri huffed and the lantern glowed a dull orange momentarily before quieting down. All right, sighed Chibri. You could have left me in the room and I could have spent some time talking to Jeffries. He seems like an amicable fellow. Samuel apologized again. Noted. Next time we're here, I'll leave you in the house and you can spend some time with him, offered Samuel reassuringly. That seemed to cheer Chibri up, and she went back to resting on her wick in the lantern, but she made sure to slide one corner of the curtain up and kept half-lidded eyes peering out towards her new surroundings. Having never been to a town with this much color before, she was absolutely fascinated. Sorry, Chibri. We'll think more about your situation before we pick you up and carry you with us the next time we head out into a new area, Rose said. It's okay, said Chibri. I'm used to being stuck in this thing. Just thought I would remind you that I'm here, though. Samuel and Rose smiled at each other. They rounded the last building and Samuel let go of Samuel's paw and gasped. Before them lay a large open station. Multiple metal lines ran from each end of the rotating platform going outward in a circular pattern from the multi-level station that sat around the turnstile, and there were many animals waiting on each level for the next available tram. The tram that had finished loading as they rounded the corner and came into the open made its way to the turnstile in the middle of the station and locked its wheels. The circular platform began rotating slowly until it had lined up with the track that traveled perpendicular to its original position, and the tram began moving away from the station, picking up speed before disappearing behind a curve in the track that led into groves of apartments. The trams were huge, at least compared to the mouse and otter that walked up to the nearest platform, designed to hold much larger animals all at once. As they came up from the stairs to the first platform, animals rushed by them in both directions, heading to and leaving the station in small and large groups, reached or traveled to their destination. As they came onto the platform, they passed a portly anteater in a blue conductor's hat with a matching blue and white striped shirt. Sent your tram to Middletown, coming up next, he yelled the anteater, who continued on up the platform stairs, repeating himself just as boisterously with each few steps taken. Rose and Samuel continued walking until they reached the ticket machines and trains maps in the center of the platform. There were machines of increasing size from smallest to largest, contending with the customer type that would use them. Rose walked up to the series of maps laid out in the same manner, coming up to the smallest version that sat at her eye level. Rose traced a finger along from the red circle signifying the station they were currently attending, and down to the stop they needed to get off at near the clock tower. The word Middletown was scrawled above the track in fine dark script. Here's where we need to go, and that tram that's coming up is going our way, said Rose. Samuel nodded. That looks right, but we should get our tickets before we're stuck waiting for the next one in an hour, said Samuel. Rose and Samuel moved over to the line of ticket machines that ran the rest of the length of the platform, moving inward a few machines until they were behind a family of rabbits that were getting their tickets. The larger rabbits, a young couple by looking at them, were both pushing multi-seat prams in front of them. The male held on with one paw as he fed coins into the machine and pulled a small lever from a series of levers that ran the height of the machine, each with a different name and coin amount fixed next to them, and then held out his paw as a line of tickets were spread out, one for each of the 6 baby rabbits as well as the parents. The female rabbit was rocking her pram gently with both paws, trying to keep the sleeping bunnies peacefully content in the stroller as she waited. Got them, said the young male rabbit, and pushed his pram out in front of him and down the platform. Female rabbit followed behind him with her own stroller, and they disappeared into the crowded waiting section designated by a large yellow painted line. Rose and Samuel moved up to the machine and studied it momentarily. Looks like it's 4 silver coins for 2 tickets to Middletown, said Samuel. Right, I should have that in my coin purse, said Rose, reaching into her shirt for the pouch that sat around her neck. Rose removed the pouch, rummaged around it for a few moments, and pulled out 4 shiny silver coins, and masters with a crown on each side pressed into it. She plunked them into the machine, which ate them easily enough, and Samuel reached up and pulled the lever next to Middletown. 2 tickets appeared from the feeder to the side of the levers, and Rose grabbed them before they could fall to the floor. Rose tore one of the tickets off and handed it to Samuel, who took it and placed it in his pants pocket. "We'd better hurry and get to the waiting area for the tram," said Samuel. Rose agreed, and the 2 of them had turned on their heels and made their way over to the painted area they had seen the Rabbit family head off to. The 2 of them came up behind the family and waited patiently. Rose tapped the young mother on the shoulder. "Excuse me, miss, is this the tram that goes to Middletown? It's our first time here, and I'm not sure if we're in the right place," said Rose. The young rabbit turned to her, and Rose noticed the large dark circles beneath both light amber eyes. The rabbit smiled at her, ignoring her in tiredness. "Oh, yes. This is the line that leads to the center of town. Try and find a seat if you can, because they fill up quickly. The tram will stop at each station, so just make sure you count the number of stops you'll need to take before you need to get off. At least that's what I do," said the rabbit, laughing to herself. "Thanks for your help, miss," said Rose, and smiled back at her. The rabbit smiled at Rose and turned her attention back to her pram. One of the young bunnies had started mewling in the stroller, and she began rocking it gently again, trying to quiet them. Rose looked around the platform. There were lines of seats of various sizes laid out down the length of the waiting area under large wooden shelters that protected those seated from rainy days. Animals of all types walked up and down the platforms, some heading up the stairs to the waiting areas for the other tram lines, and others coming down and either leaving the station or heading to the maps on the wall behind them. Suddenly a shadow enveloped both Rose and Samuel, and Rose shrank away from the darkness instinctively. A giant black bear had moved over next to them, blocking out the afternoon sunshine. "Eep!" let out Rose, and moved to Samuel's other side. Samuel laughed. "Sorry, Miss Mousie," said a gruff voice from above them. "Almost didn't see you there. Didn't mean to scare you any." The black bear bent down, towering over Rose and Samuel, and smiled a large toothy grin. Rose, blushing furiously from the embarrassment of being startled, returned a shaky smile to the bear. "No bother," Rose replied. Samuel laughed again and grabbed Rose's paw. Rose calmed down quickly, and still hiding behind Samuel, peered up at the bear, of which only his waist could she make out from above her. "He's so big," said Rose. The bear bent down again, bringing his large muzzle down to Rose's face, where she could see teeth as long as her arm move about as he spoke. "That I am, Miss Mousie. I didn't mean any harm, though. We bears tend to be big for our age," the black bear said pleasantly, and laughed to himself. The laughter echoed loudly down the platform. "Right. Sorry, you're the first bear I've ever seen," said Rose. Well, isn't that nice?" said the bear, and held out his huge paw for her to shake. "Name's Arvy. Pleasure to meet you, little Miss Mousie." Rose wrapped her fingers around one large digit of the bear's paw and shook it the best she could. Harvey wiggled his finger, shaking Rose nearly off her feet as he did so. "Rose, my name is Rose," said Rose, bouncing with each shake of his finger. Rose let go of Harvey's paw, steadying herself with Samuel's help. "It's nice to meet you too," said Rose, relieved she had stopped bouncing and holding on to Samuel's paw just a little too hard. Samuel patted her on the shoulder with his free paw, and they stood there waiting for the tram to come up. The anteater that had walked by them on the stairs had come back down and was continuing his information, shouting down the platform's length. "Middletown tram coming up next. Here shortly. Make sure to have your tickets handy when you get on board. Middletown tram coming up next," yelled the anteater, moving down the platform as he repeated his message. Rose and Samuel made their way to the edge of the waiting area, right near the drop-off from the platform to the tram, and waited. Samuel was staring down the length of the track before them as the tram made its way around the corner and pulled into the station. One of the sets of doors stopping them just to the right of them as the tram slowed to a stop. The group of animals waiting moved to the sides of the doors to allow others to get out of the tram so they could get in more easily. As the doors slid open and dozens of animals of various sizes spilled out into the station and the moving crowds. "Middletown tram, all aboard," yelled the anteater as he swung his way up through the oncoming crowd from the tram. The tram finished unloading, and the animals that had been waiting patiently for their chance made their way into the traveling compartments. First dozen or so finding seats as the others milled into the standing area with poles on the sides and hanging overhead of them. Straps hang down at various heights from the poles, letting smaller animals as well as taller ones hold on to the same pole without jostling each other for a safe handhold. The rabbit family had made it on with the first few passengers, and the mother and father rabbit were sitting comfortably on seats built below the large benches along the length of the tram, where the black bear and the others had found places to sit. The young mother had one leg wrapped around her pram's wheels in front of her and was kicking rhythmically. She had fallen asleep, resting against her husband's shoulder, and he sat there, jiggling his stroller gently with one paw and reading a book with the other. Rose and Samuel moved to the seats between the black bear's leg and sat down. Rose scanned the compartment, taking note of all the different animals that sat or stood there. Harvey shifted his leg, obscuring her view momentarily behind one thick leg, and spread them out open again. Having gotten comfortable, Harvey sighed contentedly. Rose and Samuel pulled out their town map, each holding one side of it, and checked to see where the stops were between them and the one near the clock tower in Middletown. "There's 2 stops before we get to ours," said Rose, poking the map with one finger at the blue dot that represented the station they were currently in. Samuel placed his own finger next to hers and traced it to the stop 3 dots up along the track. His paw rested over the clock tower on the map. "Shouldn't take too long to get there," said Samuel, removing his finger and placing the paw on his lap. The tram huffed and a bell dinged twice. The doors to the compartments closed, and the tram lurched forward slightly, making its way to the turnstile. It came to a stop in the middle of the rotating platform and locked its wheels, sighing gently as it stuck in place. The tram started to swing on its axis and rotated around a full 3/4 turn, facing towards the track that would lead them to their destination. Rose held on to Samuel's arm, steadying herself. The track locked into place and the tram hissed, sliding forward up onto the new track leading out of the station, and began to pick up speed. Rose folded the map up and gave it to Samuel to put in his shirt pocket, which he did with his free arm. Okay, well, I'm taking a break, so I might as well do some ads. This is my first one, so bear with me. So, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. That's pretty cool. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And all you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Please visit anchor.fm/divergentmind to leave a message so that I may get back to you. Thank you. Have a nice day. So Anchor is asking me to ask you to support me financially. I would ask that you go to my Patreon to do that, which is patreon.com/divergentmind. It means you can either become a monthly subscriber at a different tier of $1 to $3 to $5. I'm not looking for a lot. I'm not asking for a lot. I'm not asking for anything. This is going to go to the end of my podcast. I don't like it when podcasts straight up ask you for money when I'm doing okay. Well, I'm not doing okay. I'm surviving now to the point that I can make this. I would love to be able to make improvements to this by, say, getting... So basically, I'm running off an iPad, and I would like to improve it by getting different things that would make it better. Maybe some headphones that monitor output, or a better mic, though the mic I got was from JWife, so I might not even use the better mic. You know what I mean? It's all about whatever I need at the time, but really it's just to get healthy again, because I'm currently over 300 pounds and I don't want to die that young. I would really like to be able to afford some vegetables so I can go back to my vegetarian diet, because being this big sucks. And I'm happy to sit in a chair all day, but I really got to walk my butt off, literally. So that's what the money would be for. It would be for healthy food, because I can't afford it. I can afford ramen and pasta and rice and beans, but I can't live on carbs, because that's how you get this big on antipsychotics. Junk food and carbs, which is just cheap and plentiful around me. So I would like to leave my house and just lose some weight. And to do that, I would like to go to the store and buy some vegetables, please. But you don't have to do anything. I'm not asking you to. I'm not begging. I'll figure it out on my own. Much pleasure, Jay. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know that I have a YouTube channel called Taught Myself, and that I've decided to start selling merch already with a phrase that my brother showed me saying, "My disability is invisible," of which I made a hat for myself. So I decided to make hats, shirts, hoodies, for both men and women on Spreadshirt.com. All you have to do is search for "My Disability is Invisible." It's in green, and that's mine. You'll know it's me because when you click the sale icon, the same little Divergent Mind icon comes up. And I hope you'll support me. I make about $5 per shirt or per sale. Everything else goes to Spreadshirt. But that's okay because it's still a better deal than a lot of other places. And I really hope you'll support me. Come check me out on the YouTube. Teach me how to do that properly so I can have a community there too. And I await your response. Have a lovely day. Jay.
Hey people, take a listen to the Divergent Mind podcast. You get both insight into living with a serious mental illness and get to listen to a lovely tale about a journey cute little animals need to take. Don't miss out, and remember, divergent minds don't need to think alike.